Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're going to Masechtas Moed Katan daf Hey. We're going to begin at the very bottom of Daled Amud Beis. Umasaknin es kilkuli hamayim shebershus harabim. That we allow on Chol HaMoed for you to be able to fix certain things that are broken. Specifically, as Rashi says, avandim shenafu machmas abor. Let's say you have stones that fell due to this pit in the for this well that's used for everyone, that is allowed to be fixed. So the Gemara says chatita in, says Rashi, naful sroiros bekarkios. If let's say you have stones that fell into the earth of the pit, maloisim b'moed, you can clear them out. So chatita is clearing from the gathered debris, whether it's, again, rocks or whatever fell in there, that's allowed. However, chafira, lo. L'chayra, one is not allowed to actually to dig. So Amar Rabbi Yaakov, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, lo shanu, the only time we say this is el shein rabim srichen lehen. Of rabim srichen lehen, afil chafira mutter. If it's for the sake of the multitudes, then it's allowed to be done. So where it says 1 second, just because people need it, we're going to allow you to dig. It says only we allow you to clear the debris or the stones that fell into these pits. You're allowed to do that. However, certainly you should be able to be chaytetin for the rabbim. However, ve'ein chayfrin bar shichon umaris shel rabbim. Beferish, it says you can't do this. Ve'ein sarach loimer shel yachid. My love, b'sharabim srichen lehen. That even though the rabbim need these pits to have water in them, you're still allowed to dig them. Where it says lo, b'shein rabbim srichen lehen. When it's not needed, then it's not allowed to be done even for the sake of the rabbim. The kavasi gabi yachid. So it's comparable to the Yachid, she'in Yachid sarach lahem, that the Yachid doesn't need it. Now, Chatiti mishari, so if it's true that it's for a Yachid, and the Yachid doesn't need it, so then why would we allow you to even have the individual have him clear out the debris? When it comes to an individual, he can fill up water into it, the Farish, it says you're not allowed to have him clear out this debris. Not only that, he's not allowed to smooth out the sides if they have cracks. So that's going to be the question. But when it comes to the rabbim, we do allow you to do chatita. So we see that chaytetin is only allowed by rabbim, but not by a yachid. So according to this, it's mashma that in the event that we're talking about, this whole statement is the rabbim don't need it. So if the yachid doesn't need it, he wouldn't be allowed to do chatita either. So how do you want to say it? So we're talking about the yachid does need it, and that's the reason why we matter chatita of a yachid. So then we have to compare the two. The kavasi gabi rabbim k'b'shrab masrichelhen. So if that's the case, then chafirim yaser is it really true that if the rabbim do need it, so then why would we say you can't dig? But we also said bar shichon umayr shel yachid kaintin mayim l'saychen v'chaytet nayisan avloy shafin esid kayin. You're not allowed to fix and smooth out the sides. You can't put plaster there. However, shel rabim chayfrin, it says beferish that you could do so. You are allowed to plow and to dig chayfrin nayisan. The son nayisan b'tzid. So how do you read this? It seems to be a stira. And so how do we understand this? So Taratachi. A person is allowed to do chatita. You're allowed to clear even an individual's pit. Davka when it's needed. When the yachid needs it, so then we allow him to clear it out. Certainly, whenever there's a tzarech, if it's tzarech lahem, then one is always allowed to do chatita, yachid rabbim. Defil chafira mutter, because when it comes to rabbim, we'll even allow you to do chafira. The ein chayfin bar shichon umayr shel rabbim, b'shein rabbim srichahen. But you're not to do chafira by a rabbim if it's not needed. Vein tzarich loim shel yachid. Certainly yachid can't, because tachi ein yachid tzarich lehem afil chatita nam yaser. Because there he wouldn't even allow to do chatita. So therefore, according to this, it's like this. If it's a tzarich, then everything is allowed to be. You're always allowed to do chatita. It's not a problem. You can always be chaytitin. If it's not a tzarich, then a yachid can't even do chatita. If it is a tzarich, then not only could the rabbim do chatita, but they can even do chfira. Rav Ashi mastisa nami deka. We can also see this clear from the wording. Diktani, what does it say? Oisin kol tzarchi rabbim. So koil lasuyimai. What's that coming to include? You can do anything for the sake of the rabbim. Lali sui chfira. Well, her it's coming to tell you, must be that you're allowed to even dig holes. Lo yisui hodasanya. Maybe it's only coming to include the following: Yoitzin lekavitz esadrachim. You can go out to clean off the road, says Rashi. Lafanus koitzim shebedrachim. There may be thorns or branches on the ground. Losakin es harachayvos. You can fix up the town square. Ves ha'is tartois, which is also the side of the road. Moed es mikvos. You can measure the mikvah to make sure that it has the minimum arboim saw. The whole mikvah shein bo arboim saw maragun margilun l'saychan arboim saw. If it doesn't have arboim saw, so then you could do what it takes to put enough water into it to make sure it is a minimal amount. Uminayin she'im lo yotzu v'asu kol elu. Shekol damim shenishpachu sham malem v'kosev ki'ilu hem shavchum. How do we know that if a person did not go out? Now you are allowed to do all these things. Now let's say you didn't go out and do all these different matters. The shekol damim shenishpachu, all the blood that was spilled, says Rashi, kigayin shekaitzim shebedrachim, due to all these thorns. It's like you did it, like you're responsible for the fact that someone got injured because you didn't clean this area. That it'll like be blood upon you. Now, so it already says that you're allowed to do those things. So in fact, when it says it can't just be coming to tell you those things, because those things are already explicitly mentioned in the Mishnah. But it's coming to tell you that it's even when it comes to chfira, it's allowed to be done for the sake of the rabbim when the rabbim is in need of it. Okay, fine. Weiter. So again, but certainly we see that the dangers of having roads which are not properly upkept, and if we don't do what we're supposed to do, so in that situation, in that case, we're actually responsible. Says Taisus, Perish Rabbeinu Chananel Noked Leila Haikra Beparshas Makeh. When it comes to putting a fence around your roof, the Dami Lahai Dami Mikshel Mamasnisin. It's like a stumbling block. You're causing someone to go up there and fall. Shasel lahashkos karkais, yeshulam shasel hashkos karkais. El oisem dahavi davar aved shis kalkul hatvua v'yilanos adatuosba. V'adun l'shara b'nis karka aser b'chol shemoyed. You would think things that are not for the sake of helping people, or for otherwise it gets destroyed, then it wouldn't be allowed. But if it's okay, weiter. So mitzayonin esekvaris. Okay, actually we'll just see this. Question 13. So we said chfira is allowed. However, if it's in srichen lehen b'moed, then it is aser. It's only allowed dafka if it's for the sake of moed, if there's a need for it, right? If it's a tzarech rabim. However, if it's not a tzarech rabim, then it's not allowed. As we saw again by the Taretz Hachi, that ein chayfrin b'she'ein rabim srichen lehen. When they're not any need to do it, then it's not allowed to be done. Okay, weiter. So mitzayones a kavaros, a person is able to clean off. So mitzayones a kavaros. So you can put like this pitch on the graves or near where the bodies are buried, so that no one will come too close to it and become tamei. Amar Shimon ben Pazi, Remes l'tzion kavaros min atar minayin. How do we find some type of a hint that we're supposed to put these markers on these graves? So how do we see this? Talmud loimer v'ra etzem adam ubana etzot tzion. If you see the bone of a person, then you should build next to a tzion. So it's, again, this is a pasuk in Yecheskel that's coming to tell you that that's what a person is supposed to do to create this some type of a marker. So that's great with Yecheskel, but before Yecheskel, who said it? So that means it wasn't done. We learned something else from Yecheskel, namely, it says in Yecheskel, Kol ben nechar aralev ve'erol basar lo yavo el mikdashi l'shar seini. So a person who, as Rashi says, meso echel machmas mila. If a person has a bunch of brothers and they all had bris meal and they all died, so they have absolutely no need to do the meal because that child's going to die. So Rashi says, "V'lo ratzal moilo shiurim pen yomos gam hu ke'elchiv." He's going to die. V'lo yavo el mikdashi. Doesn't make any difference as far as him that he cannot do the avoda. So who taught this din? So it didn't apply. This law never came about until Yecheskel. So it doesn't mean it never happened before. It means that Yecheskel found a pasuk to support it. So it's the same thing. We always had the requirement of some type of a marker. However, this is something in which now Yecheskel is Saimich on a pasuk. Ravavo Amr Mahacha, but Tame Yikra. So when you have someone who has saras and he's taken out of all machanois, so in order to distance himself, or so no one else should become Tame, he has to declare out loud that he's Tame. He's basically, that's what the tzion does. The tzion basically is like this person who says, stay away from me, or stay away from here because there's a mace here. Rabbi Uziel, Bar Bered Rab Uziel, Rabba, he says, Tuma Karuloi V'Omeres Lo Parish. Same explanation. V'hai L'Hachahudasa. Is that what it's coming to tell you? Hahuma Boyle L'Gasani V'Tami Tami Yikra. What do we learn out from that pasuk? The whole idea is that when there are issues, you should cry out, so this way people know that you're struggling and have issues, and then people will be able to pray on your behalf. So it tells us two things. First of all, it says stay away, but it also is saying don't forget about me because I need your prayers. If the evil you don't want to put a stumbling block in front of someone. If they don't know that there's a mace there, they're going to become tamei. Which has to do with a nazir, that we want to make sure that he stays away from vineyards, so he doesn't end up being tempted to eat grapes or drink wine. Harimu michshol miderach. They should remove any stumbling blocks from the road. Miderach ami. Rabbi Yeshua bered Rabbi Idi omer v'hodat lahem es haderach asher yelchu bo. You should know the proper way to go and not over here. Whereas Zitra omer v'hi zartem es bnei Yisrael matu masam, that they should be careful from becoming tamei. Ravashi omer v'shmartim es mishmarti asu mishmeres l'mishmarti. They have to do some type of protective measures, which again is the tzion. Ravina omer v'sam derech arena b'yesh elokim. Army of Yeshua ben Levi. Kol hasham archaisav zoicha v'royim yeshuasa shel Kadosh Baruch Hu. Anyone who does an evaluation he'll end up seeing the salvation from Hashem. Says Rashi, Zeh Hashem Archaisav Hamachashiv Hefsid Mitzvah Keneged Schar Aver Keneged Hefseda B'Sham K'moy Shaman. So you should evaluate and assess your losses opposite the gain, and therefore by doing that you'll see the Yeshua of Hashem. B'Yeshua Shel Kadosh Baruch Hu Shnemar B'Sam Derech Al Tikri B'Sam El B'Sham Derech, that you should evaluate your path. Arenu B'Yesh Elokim. Rabbi Yanaim Havi Leahu Talmidi had a student Havi Yoima the whole Yoima Havi Makshule B'Shabbat the Rigua Havi Makshule. So he used to always ask questions. However, in the Shabbos the Regel, he didn't ask questions. Says Rashi, Mishum Yasu Kol Yalma Lepirka. Everyone came to his class. The Makshule, if he asked him, V'loi Havi Matzil Afruki Havi Machsef. He knew that if there was so many people there, if he would ask a question, he would potentially embarrass him. As we continue to Hamid Bays, Kari Olei. So it was called upon this person who was sensitive, the Sham Derech Arenu B'Yesh Elokim. The fact that he thought about not asking the question. Should I ask a question? Should I not ask? So there are times that are good to ask and times that are not good because we don't want to, again, embarrass anyone. Tanobanan. Ein Matzayonin Loy Al Kazayas Min Ames. If let's say you have exactly a kazayas of flesh, of a dead body, which then itself is susceptible to Mekabel Tumah, nonetheless, we're not going to make a tzion for that. Bo al etzem kisayra. Also, if the bone is only the size of a barley seed, because a barley seed of a mace is only matama b'magva masa, but it's not matama b'oil. V'loy al davar she'ena matama b'oil, including that. Al v'matzayin al shedra v'al gilgailas al binyan v'al roiv ha-mace, which is question 14. El chalakam in a mace mataman ba'oyhil mitzayon and isai. So, and there's 4 answers. If you have either the skull, the spinal column, or the majority of the bones, or rov binyan, which it doesn't have to be the majority, but the majority number of the 248 bones, but rather the large bones. So therefore, that will be the majority of actual amount of bone. So therefore, it will all be those 4 different circumstances. Is tame oil, which even if you don't touch it, just walking over it is tummy oil. So therefore, because that's the highest level of tumah, in which is tumah shiva, so therefore we make markers. Then messiah al havadois, we don't make markers on vadois. It says Rashi, hoyel debaru l'kul yalma the isbe tumah vadois lo metaltole ba'oisa makam taharas. It's not necessary to make those markers. If everyone knows 100% there is a mace or this is a cemetery, you don't need to make a bunch of markers there because everyone knows that that's obviously what it is. We only do it when it comes to areas which are doubtful. So these different areas, Rashi says, are near the Rosh Hashanah, and they're near a basic varis, near a cemetery. So because of that, we're not sure if that area also has a mace. And therefore, because of that, as Rashi says, the Kaman Dieshalehin oil, Ragin Likvar Shamba Makam Sanua, it's possible, and we're going to see exactly what are these things. Chachlus pros, what's a base of pras? This is brought down base of pras in many places in Shas. The ein ma'amidin, so these are sfeikos, and we do markers there. The ein ma'amidin tzion b'makam tuma, we don't put them with a tzion on the actual body, the mace area itself. Shol hafsid es atyrus. We don't want to be mafsid the taurus, says Rashi. She'ima tuma mamish tachas atzion. If you put it right under it, or the mace is right under the tzion, enu margil achibal tzion pitoim. You're going to encounter it, and it's going to be too little, too late. The yatamu hataharos shahar yatuma tachas atzion. Ella, says Rashi, oisen atzion samachotoma. We put the marker near the mace, berachik, a little bit far away. Kol shehu ukshaba al tzion. When you get to that, margish minatoma ve'enu hayel chalal. So it's going to give you a chance to stop and catch yourself before you move further. So therefore, we don't want to put the tzion mamish on the where the mace is, but near it. However, for that matter, even though in mamidin tzion b'makom tumah shul hafsid es ataros, also in marchikin tzion b'makom tumah shul hafsid es Eretz Yisrael. We don't want Eretz Yisrael just to be a big graveyard. And therefore, we have to be sensitive for it not to be too far away, because then all of a sudden we're making areas which are really not tameh as though they're tameh. So, for the Gemara, why is it that when it comes to a kazayas basar of a mace, why do we put it tzion? Isn't that matama? After all, the hatanya of a tanan, it says in Masechtas Ohalois, Eilu shematamin ba'oil kazayas min mace. It says beferish kazayas min mace. So Amar Papa Hacha kazayas mit sumsum askinan. There's also brought in Masechtas Shkolim, I believe, that it's in exactly the exact amount. The soif mechser chaser, it will eventually get less. In other words, the flesh will eventually disintegrate or end up becoming less than a kazayas. So mutav yisrael of truma of a kadshim lefisha, even though it's true, we're going to end up burning truma and kadshim for a moment, and not let it be burnt forever. In other words, we don't want, at a certain point, this basar is going to be less than a kazayas, maybe in a few days. So at that point, from those few days on, a person can go over there, it's not going to be a problem. But if we put a marker there and they went by it, they're going to burn kudshim, which is going to be not necessary. So it's better that we should err even for a small amount of time than to make these markers, which again will cause us to burn kudshim for no reason, because it really won't be a basar kazayas there. What is that? It's an elon. It's a tree which is hamesach al haaretz. So you have this tree, which again is near the graveyard. So it's possible, it's a chance that there was a burial there. Prois avonim, prois hayotzes minegader. So these are like stones that protrude outside of the fence. So again, it's very close to the base of kvaris. It's possible that a person may have buried their dead there. Base of pras kedetnan. Hachayrish is a kever, someone who plows a grave. Harihu oisa base of pras. At that point, he's now made it into what's called a base of pras. V'kama hu oisa. So, and how much does he do? Malo mana me'ama. So you should do it the amount of 100 amos. So let's look at Rashi. Besa pras, chatzi mana, half a mana, telem echad, which is like one pile, column shel ama of 100. Okay. The ubesa pras mimatama ba'oil. So the question is, what's the problem over here? We don't say that a besa pras has the capacity to be matama anyway, the tumas oil. After all, Yomi, Rabbi Yehuda and Shmuel, we're very lenient. In menapeach adam besa pras v'hoylech. All you need to literally do is blow, and that's enough. All you need to do is just blow right next to the earth, and then you can continue to walk, which is a tremendous leniency. But it's because we're not so concerned that there's tumas oil there. Yehuda barami mishmeda ul oimer besa pras shenidash tahar. If let's say you have a threshed, plowed up field, then it's completely tahar. And the reason is because even if there is a mace there, the plowing is going to have caused the bones to have been moved around and crushed, so that there's no longer the requisite amount. All there could potentially be is maybe a bone the size of a sa'ira, of a barley seed. And therefore it could be matama masumaga, but it's no longer matama oil. So how can we say there's a tumas oil by besa pras that we require tzion? Amar papulo kasha kan besade she'avad bakever kan besade she'nechash bakever. If we're talking about a field in which the body is lost, says Rashi, Katani demitzayonin. There we do make those markers, the matam oil, because we have no idea where the mace is. We didn't plow the field. We just know that somewhere around here is a mace. We don't know where. So therefore, because of that, there is the possibility of tumas oil. So therefore, you have to do this tziyun. Avol says Rashi besada shenechash b'kever. It was all plowed up. In sarchasayin, you're right. Now you don't need a marker. Oil. The name of machrisha salki latuma. Maybe we'll say that the plow broke it up. So therefore, that's the answer. If it's talking about a lost kever, so then yeah, we're still concerned, and therefore you need a tzion. However, if it's a situation where it was plowed, that type of base is not an issue. It's not going to be matama oil. The sada shenechash b'kever base of pras karile in. So the question: why is that called a base of pras? It's already plowed up. It's still called a base of pras. V'tanan, as we learn, shloisha base of prasein. There's actually three different kinds. Sada shenevad b'kever, a field in which the kever is lost, and which is a huge problem because you don't know where it is. The sada shenechash b'kever, which we said it's all plowed up, so there's no tumas oil. The ustei boichin. And the third one is the stei boichin. But nonetheless, before we explain what a stei boichin is, we see clearly this a field that was nechrash is still called a beis pras. So my stei boichin. So Rabbi Yeshua barabba mishmei de'ula omer sada. It's a field shemaftirin ba mesim. So what is that referring to? It says Rashi. When they bring mason from one place to the next, likfor to bury, when they get to the field near the city, niftarin elu, they bring it to that field, and the people from that place come, they are makabel the mace, and they wash the remains, and they bury the body. So that's like a place where they do a lot of the preparations for the mace. The sadish shenechash b'kever lo boy tzion. Is that true though? We're saying that it doesn't need a tzion if the plow dug it all up. Which again, you would say not, because it's not an oil. So where it says, Vatanya, Matzasada Mitsuyenes, if let's say you found a field which has these markers, however, Inyodua Mativa, you don't know its status. Yeshbo Yulanois, if it has trees, Biadua Shenechash Kever, then it should be known that the kever was plowed up, right? But what do we see? Interestingly enough, even though there were trees, we will still say that it's possible that, and we're going to say, oh, it was plowed. The kever was plowed. But what do we see? There's still a tzion there. So if there's a tzion, even in a situation where it's plowed. I thought we said when it's plowed, it can't become tummy oil, and therefore it shouldn't have a tzion. That's the question. In boyulanos, so if it has trees, again, you know it was plowed. Says Rashi, why? The yochel halach sheinu matam of oil alma, as we say in Rashi, meaning tani bo matzah sadam mitziyanes, the mitzayon the base of pras shnechrash. We will do tzion on a base of pras that was already plowed. Let's finish up this point before the question. That's the question, but it continues. In boyulanos, let's say a field doesn't have trees, but you do a sh'avin about kever. It means that the kever is lost. Okay, and they didn't plow it. It's matam oil. Okay. Rabbi Huda Aimer ad shehisham zakin o talmud lefish ein hakol b'kiyan b'davar. We're not experts, so actually you need someone to tell us exactly what the deal is. But again, it's a question. We see l'chayra that will even put a tzion on a base on a field which has been plowed. So Amar Papa ki tanyahi b'sadish she'avad ba kever ditzinuha. So that's what it's talking about. The tzion was only placed on a field in which had lost, was avad ba kever. The kever was lost. We don't know where it is. However, if it was plowed, that's not a case of a lost. If it was lost, then you're right. It could become tummy oil. That's why it's a tzion. But otherwise not. Yesh bo ilanos, it said, if there's trees, be a shenechash bakever. Ein bo ilanos, be a shava bakever. Ivalechash dilma ilanos migavoy. Maybe the trees are on the inside. Bakever mivroi. And the kever's on the outside. So the question is, how do we know exactly, based on the situation of the trees, where the mace is? What does that mean? It's on its boundaries, says Rashi. If, let's say, the trees are right on the boundary of the Rishus Harabim, certainly no one's going to bury a mace in the public thoroughfare, and therefore it must be that the mace is on the inside. So maybe the tuma indeed is on the inside, but the trees are outside. All right. So how do we know exactly where the mace is? Our answer is b'misu bachin. What does that mean? B'misu bachin, says Rashi, muravin b'chol hasada. It's mixed in the whole field. Certainly they plowed the entire field. That which we said, Ein marchikin sian memakom tuma shloy lahafsid es Eretz Yisrael. We said that what we do is we will be marchik it a little bit, so we're not causing problems and eating up parts of Eretz Yisrael. Says Rashi, the kivan shesamach lilanos hatzion vaday tuma bin hilanoisi v'nechash mishvil hilanois. The fact that it is in this area, because we don't want to make it too far away, it must be that the mace is very close proximity to it, and that we shouldn't assume that it is somewhere else. Okay, we're gonna stop there. Okay, let's see. TA 24. Madua in Messianin al Kazayas min Hames. After all, it is Tami Tumas oil. So he says, because it's Kazayas Mitzum, it's exact, and it's going to end up getting less soon. And better that you should burn Truman Kachim for a short amount of time and not for an extended period of time. Okay. TB 25. Bor Shel Rabim. When it comes to a pit for the majority, for people, he mutu lechtait oisa b'moed umadin l'chayfro. So the din is, if it was l'tzarech, says, let's look at how he writes this. Chaytatin, you're allowed to clear it out. Bein kish rabim srichin lo, bein kish ein rabim srichin lo, whether it's needed or not. However, chayfrin will only allow you to dig rak kish rabim srichin lo, only a situation where the rabim need it. Adkan.